Hi, my name is Maria Elena Venegas, and the playwright that I chose was William Shakespeare. So, William Shakespeare was during the English Renaissance, and this was English Renaissance theater. This took place in England in between 1562 and 1642. Sometimes this was called the Elizabethan theater era, and that is because it was under the control of Queen Elizabeth I of England. During this era, a lot of theater started to flourish and be born. That is because plays were written more, they were performed publicly more, and during this time, they were building more stages in which they became permanent theaters. More actors started to travel to give plays instead of just everybody in the same town. But still, during this time, women still did not act in plays. They were not allowed to be on stage, and if there was a role of a woman, it would be made up by using a young boy in a dress or wig. So it was still all males on stage. It was just young boys who were playing women. So I chose William Shakespeare. His birthday is celebrated April 23rd, 1564. We share the same birthday. But the thing is that there is no birth record certificate. The only record there is when they signed him up to the church. It was around April 26th, and usually at this time, people would baptize their kids in the church about 3 days after they were born. So an estimate comes up that William Shakespeare was born on April 23rd and he died on April 23rd, 1616. And he is the third son of Jonathan and Mary Shakespeare, and he was born after a plague outbreak hit his town. So he was born in an all right time. The plague already hit his town, but so he was born. So at the age 18, he married Anne Hathaway, who is older than him, and he had 3 children. He had 2 girls and 1 boy. Unfortunately, the son died of health issues, so he did not make it into adulthood, but his 2 daughters did live on to marry. And I believe they married men who were involved in the same school that he went to, which there's no official record or evidence about it, but many say that at 7 years old he attended school in Stratford, which was a grammar school. And it was an all boys school because during this time, again, women were still not allowed to be educated. And I did look up the school a little bit, and I think just recently, like 2013, 2014, it started to admit girls. So now it's not no longer an all boys school, it's in everybody's school. So some of Shakespeare's plays fell under they fell under different categories, but some of the most famous are his tragedies, his comedies, and his histories. So a lot of famous ones come from the genre tragedies. His most famous ones are Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, and King Lear. And I remember in high school reading Romeo, Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, and Julius Caesar. So all 4 years of high school, a Shakespeare play was involved. So many schools still study Shakespeare regularly. So some of Shakespeare's influence on theater. So Shakespeare gave his plays in a wooden O or cockpit shaped stage. So it was no longer just a performing stage of someone's up there and you can only see them from a different angle. He actually made it so you can see from different angles, and his stages were designed so that the actors could give speeches to the audience. So they were able to walk down into the audience and kind of give their speech. Like, for example, Hamlet's soliloquy is something famous that they need the audience to really pay attention to. So actors would be able to come down and, listen to it and actually be a part of it so they can directly talk to the audience. They even had doors for the actors to use. So this was so the actors can, be put away before it's their time to come in, or use doors for like dramatic effect. He also made an impact today because there's a lot of shows and movies with heavy influence. Also, the thing about Shakespeare is a lot of his stages weren't empty, but he tried to keep like one prop mainly on there. Like, for example, if the setting was a cemetery, he would try to probably put one headstone or one grave there, so it kind of gives the feel. So it doesn't take away from the focus on the actors. It kind of still brings up the setting, but it's minimalistic. So again, a lot of shows are heavily inspired by some of Shakespeare's work. Some of the movies and shows today inspired by Shakespeare are Warm Bodies, A Thousand Acres. There's a little piece of like Shakespeare reference in The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Lion King, and in the bottom I put a snippet of Hamlet performed in The Simpsons, because The Simpsons also has Macbeth on there too. So they kind of brought to life a little bit of the plays. Warm Body is obviously Romeo and Juliet, A Forbidden Love, and The Lion King is based off of Macbeth, which I didn't notice until somebody told me, and I was like, oh wow, because after reading Macbeth, I was like, that's crazy. It really is. So one of his most famous was Hamlet. I really enjoyed reading Hamlet. Hamlet was published in 1603, and it's one of Shakespeare's most famous tragedies. So why is it considered a tragedy? Well, spoiler alert, everybody dies in the end. So Hamlet is the story of the ghost of King of Denmark. He goes to visit his son Hamlet and tells him to avenge his death because his uncle, who was trying to take the throne, killed him. Hamlet goes into madness, trying to believe if it's true or not, that he saw a ghost, until he was able to kind of get information out of his uncle to prove that, yeah, he did kill his dad. So that made him go crazy, go mad. He wanted revenge for his father. So it basically turned into him trying to kill the king. The king found out, tried to have Hamlet killed. And when that happened, everything just started to go crazy. There was battles, this and that. And the play ends with a duel in which everybody dies. So that's also why it's considered a tragedy, because no one really lives. Almost every character dies. The king dies, the queen dies, Hamlet dies. Ophelia, side character, he rejects, dies. Everyone just ends up dying. So that's also why it's considered a tragedy. Overall, Shakespeare has a very heavy influence on today. Schools are still studying him heavily. A lot of movies are still being inspired by him, and a lot of Shakespeare references are sometimes often put in movies. A lot of people don't catch them, but they are there. This is my reference page. And yeah, I did it on William Shakespeare just because I always find him interesting. I always find his plays very interesting. And for some of my courses, I have to make lessons plans, and I have made lesson plans on Hamlet and Macbeth just because I really thought those plays